Okay, so what I want to do right now is give you some understanding of the different types of layers that exist in Photoshop. So basically, there are 5 different types of layers that you will encounter when you're working in Photoshop: image, adjustment, fill, shape, and type. And I'm going to create a document that uses a few of each. So I've opened up the image, Blue Dress 300 DPI. I'm gonna start over. Let's start with our canvas. I'm gonna leave this up so you can see what it looks like when it's done. I'm gonna go to File, I'm gonna go to New. And so for this document, what I wanna do is I'm gonna go to Print Dimensions. I'm gonna be creating a document that's 8.5 by 11 at 300 DPI or PPI. So that would be a document that's gonna be for print. 8.5 by 11. 300 DPI. I'm going to leave it in RGB color. I'm going to make the background contents white. I'm going to click create. Here's our target canvas. I'm going to open that picture of Blue Dress 300 DPI. Since I'm working for print, I want the 300 DPI image. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, Control or Command minus. I'm going to flip the image right side up, image rotation. I can either use 180 degrees or flip canvas vertical. I'm going to crop the image with my crop tool. And I can either hit enter or return on my keyboard, or I can click the commit button. Now I'm going to copy and paste this into my target canvas. Select all, edit, copy. I'm going to click on my target canvas and edit and paste. And there's my, so this would be an image layer. I've got an image in this layer, okay? So what are some of the other types of layers? Well, we have what are called adjustment layers. And an adjustment layer allows you to adjust various components inside of your image. So if I come over to the right and I find adjustments, you'll see things like brightness, contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance. I'm going to click on hue saturation. When I click on hue saturation, you'll see that there's another layer that comes up in my document, and I can grab this hue slider and I can drag it around and change the colors inside of this document. I can adjust the saturation inside this document, so I can make it really saturated or less saturated. And that's an example of an adjustment layer, right? And the cool thing about these adjustment layers is that the second box here allows me to work into a mask. We'll get to that later. And anytime I want, I can come back and click into this layer and continue making adjustments. So it's not, I'm going to desaturate a little more so you can really see what's happening. So it's not nailed onto the image. It floats above the image and gives you a lot of flexibility. Next is the idea of a shape layer. So I'm going to come down and click this third button. The one looks like a half moon. And you'll see that this is one of the places where I can find my adjustment layers. That would be everything from brightness, contrast down to selective color. And then I can also create a fill. So I'm going to use a solid color fill. And I'm going to choose a color for my background. I'm going to make a kind of a dark blue color. And that's nice. It's a nice filled color. Now, the problem is it's sitting on top of all the other artwork, right? So I could lower its opacity and do something like that. But instead, what I want to do is I want to grab that layer and drag it all the way underneath. So I've got that in the background. Now, in addition to a fill layer, let's go back and click that button again. There's also solid color and gradient and pattern. Let's go and let's create a gradient. So I'm going to click that button. I'm going to create a gradient inside of here, right? I'm going to use the second button, which is the foreground and transparent, pick a different color. And now I've got the gradient sandwiched in with my fill. So I've got a, and both of these are called fill layers. Let's add another fill layer. I'm going to click there and I'm going to choose pattern. So I'm going to stack a pattern on top of this as well. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose a nice pattern. And I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to lower its opacity so it blends in with the other layers. All right, so that's an example of a fill layer. We did a fill with a pattern, a fill with, we did a fill with a pattern, a fill with a fill, and a fill with a solid fill, and a fill with a gradient. So what are the other types of layers that you will encounter in Photoshop? Well, there are things called shapes. So over here on the left, these are shape tools, and these are, each time, the thing is that each one of these layers is different from all the other layers, and are and have different properties and different ways of being activated. So I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool, and then up here you'll see that I have the ability to make a filled shape and a shape with a stroke. I'm going to click in the fill box, and I'm going to choose a color. And then I have a stroke. I can choose a color for my stroke. And then I have a thickness. And I'm just going to click and drag across the top of the image like that and make a box. And that is a vector shape, and that is a shape layer. And I'm going to increase the thickness of this stroke. And then when I'm done, I click away. And what I've done here is I've created a vector shape called a shape layer. Now the last type, and then what we're going to do over the course of the semester is we're going to spend more time learning how to activate, manipulate, and edit each one of these types, these different types of layers. But what I wanted to do in this exercise was give you an overview on the different types of layers and how they work in Photoshop. So the last type of layer is a type layer. I'm going to click on my type tool. I'm going to click on my canvas. I'm going to set the size of the text to 45 and hit enter. And it comes up with the phrase lorem ipsum, but I can just scroll right over that with the type tool and type anything I want. And I can select that text. I can change its color. I can change the font. And then when I'm done, I can grab my move tool and I can place it where I want it to go. And you'll see that Photoshop has created these really cool guides that kind of snap. And the whole idea is that it'll help me find the edges of objects, and it'll help me line things up with other things. So there are also rulers and guides in Photoshop. I think I have my rulers turned on right now, and I will show you how to use those. So very simple exercise. And the idea was to give you some understanding of the different types of layers that you will experience when you're working in Photoshop. And that is an image layer, an adjustment layer. So an image layer is just pixels, paint, photos. Adjustment layer allows you to adjust the content of an image with hue saturation or curves, where I can make it lighter or darker, or adjust the color inside of an image. A fill is a filled region. It could be a filled region. It could be a pattern. It could be a gradient. And then a shape layer is a shape that's dropped onto the screen. And the shape can be, there can be different types of shapes, circles, etc., very complex shapes. And those shapes are different from the other shapes in that they are vector. And then a type layer. And a type layer, of course, contains type. And once again, those are different because they are also vector. And those are the different types of layers that you will find in Photoshop. Let's stop there.